Okay, I'm back. Now, if this is part of one video, you will know that I have learned how to splice two videos together. I have never bothered to teach myself that, but I believe the dog just made it necessary. And yes, he just wanted to go outside by a different door. So I'm certainly glad that we were able to accomplish that for him. All right, so back to where we were, which for you was just moments ago. We're going to multiply this by 1. By WCNC over WCNC, and only once we go through it will you see why we bothered to do that. Next step is going to be this. PC is equal to WCNC over QC. There's some sort of bug on the screen or on the board. Plus, and now I'm going to switch places with the numerators right here. I'm going to switch places with these two numerators because it's perfectly legal, of course, mathematically, to switch places, to make this WCNC over QC and WINI over WCNC. And I think you'll notice something pretty quickly about this. Yeah, WCNC over QC times WINI over WCNC. I should have used a different color there because I'm afraid those might run together for you. And I'm having to do them a little bit tight here because there's not enough room. So all I have done over here, remember all we did to start off with was just divide through by QC. That's simple enough. And then I multiplied the right-hand fraction here by 1. Then I switch places with the numerators, all right? Instead of making it WINI over QC times WCNC over WCNC, I made it WCNC over QC and WINI over WCNC, which of course gives you the exact same number. But look at this. That and that are now exactly the same. And this is why we wanted to do that. Because in the next expression here, we can PC is equal to WCNC over QC times 1 plus WINI over WCNC. Did it, John? That's it. All right. So all I did was I factored out the WCNC, all right? It was here and it was here. I factored it out so that now it's this times 1 plus that expression right there. No, let's not do that. That'd be complicated. All right. Now, this ends up pretty much being the equation. There's one more step here right before I kill the dog, and that is, let's see, how far down are we? Okay, I'm going to go one more step down here. Don't forget that WINI is the same thing as profits in the consumption goods sector, which is going to be important to point out here. Oh, I was going to do a different color, wasn't I? Make it a little bit easier to see. So here is the final equation for this answer. PC is equal to, I believe someone came downstairs, so he's especially excited now. I'll move the camera here in just a second. Okay. Let me slide that down just a bit so, yeah, you've almost got it in shot. There. Now let me walk over here to the monitor to make sure it's nice and clear. Yeah. Heck, it's better than my handwriting in class. All right. So, this is a really interesting equation right here, but I'm going to go through how we got there again. And it was really pretty simple. The question itself gives you this equation right here, all right? And we're trying to figure out what is the average price level in the economy. Well, all right, there's PCs, and for consumer goods, because that's what we're usually worried about is consumer goods. And so, well, there it is, PC. So why not divide everything by QC? So that's the first step, nice and easy. Then we do this weird thing, all right, that's just multiplying by 1, but it ends up being really handy, as you'll see down here at the end. But all we've done is multiply by 1, because we want to have 2 of these, all right? Again, you'll see why eventually. We want to have 2 of these. So next step is and I'm going to draw a line right through there too. Let's see. I should have kept switching colors. There. We switched places with the numerators, so we now had the same fraction right here. So now we factor that fraction out, so it's right here by itself. And so this expression on the right becomes that fraction times 1, which is right there, plus that fraction times this right here. And remember from the previous study question that that's the same as profits in the consumption goods sector. All right? Now this is the whole answer right here. So if you write all this out, you've got the answer. There's only one more thing you have to say. And again, I have a lot to explain about it here in just a moment, but I want to make sure you know you have the study question now. These question says, be sure to point out which part of this whole thing is the markup, all right, is the markup. And that is right there. So what you can write, you can do this. Let's see. Shall I do it that way? The markup, all right? So that's the markup. So let me leave you with this first on, and this was of course number 94. You write that up here. So there's the whole answer to 94. Again, not terribly complicated, but once you get down to that last equation, you're kind of thinking, what have I got? And again, I'm going to give you some numerical examples here in a minute to drive that home. But for now, I just want to make sure you know this is the whole answer. That this is what you should have after number 94. And the markup part, and you have to include this part right here where that's the markup. Okay, so what the heck does that mean? Let's see. Now let me erase the top part of it then. So what I'm about to do is not part of the study question answer, but it's part of me explaining the study question answer. Let's see, I believe Melanie took the dog upstairs, which is greatly appreciated, so I'm going to close that door. Don't worry about that now. And let me tell you what you got when you came up with that equation down there. And you know, as with some of the other stuff I was doing, I guess that was for the containing perspectives class. You may want to pause the video and write out your answer because I'm going to go ahead and erase it here. And all I want to write on the board now is that last equation. And let's use Horned Frog purple. The price, average price level in the consumer goods sector. Oops, sorry, that should be a 1. 1 plus so now, if you wrote out what I had on the board a moment ago for the answer to, or if you block copied and pasted what I had on the board a minute ago for the answer to 94, you would certainly get full credit, but it would obviously be nice to understand what the heck you just did. And what it's saying is that, okay, first of all, notice what this first expression is. Let's see, have I gone out of your range of sight there? Yes, I have. And actually students typically, sometimes this class figures this out and sometimes they don't. This is not one that everyone always figures out. What's the top there? It's the total cost of production in the consumption goods sector. I'm going to write that out. Total costs in consumption sector. All right, that's the total cost. Remember, at a macro level, the only cost is a labor cost. All right, and so the total cost in the consumption goods sector divided by total output in consumption sector. So you got total cost divided by total output. What have you got? You've got average costs. That's the average cost per unit of each thing that was produced in the consumption goods sector. That's the average cost per unit of each thing that was produced in the consumption goods sector. So that's what you've ended up with there at the front of this, all right? So what it says is that the price of stuff in the consumption goods sector is equal to however much it cost them to make it, which is where you multiply it by 1, all right? However much it cost them to make it plus the markup, plus how much they marked it up over the initial cost. For example, this is easiest to see with some numbers here. Let's see. Let's say that okay, I'll erase this down here. I'm sorry, I'll say that again. What is the cost of the average consumer good? Well, it's how much it cost to produce it plus how much they charged for profit. How much they marked it up for profit. And let me show you this example right here. All right, let's see here. Let's have WCNC. And you don't have to do this yourself on... I guess it could be a Hell question. I hadn't thought about that. But generally speaking, I'm just having you manipulate algebra and Hell questions. But I'm doing this because I think it'll make it easier for you to understand. Let's say that's equal to, and I'm making this up as I go along, so let's see how the numbers work out. The total cost of production in the consumption goods sector, $100,000. And with that, they produced 100 things. So what's the average cost in the consumption goods sector, cost per unit? Is going to be, oh wow, $1,000. That's pretty expensive. I didn't mean to do it that way. Let's do it this way. Let's have 1,000 things produced. All right. And then, so yeah, that's right. 100,000. And so the average cost per unit is $100. All right, so they're going to sell it for $100? Well, no, they're going to make some profit. And we don't go into this in class, but one of the sort of post-Keynesian micro things is all about how firms will target a certain amount of profit, especially firms that have more market power, to use as investment funds, all right? That they target a certain amount. That doesn't mean they always get it, but they target a certain amount as how much they want to generate for investment funds, because they'd rather not borrow it. They would rather have it as retained earnings. That's actually a lot, for obvious reasons, much cheaper and much preferable to borrowing the money or selling stock. They'd rather have retained earnings, all right? So they actually target this number. And let's see, 100,000 over there. Oh, let me write my equation down here again so I can be thinking about what number I want to make up for this last one. PC is equal to WC NC over QC times 1 plus pi C over WC NC. All right, then the cost per unit is $100. Let's say that they are expecting to earn, they're hoping to earn $50,000 in profit. Again, this is the entire macroeconomy, so maybe that's 50 trillion or whatever. But $50,000 in profit, that's their target. And if you go back to that other Davidson question, it says that they have to decide on whether or not the market conditions are conducive to them changing their markup. All right, let's plug those numbers in here and see what we get. So we've got PC, let's see, I'll draw this over here on the left and then I'll step out of your way as I do so. How far over can you see? All the way. PC is equal to 100,000 divided by, 1,000 times 1 plus 50,000 divided by 100,000. Do you see where I got all those numbers? WCNC is the total cost of production for all of the consumption goods that were produced. WCNC. That's how much it cost them to produce all the stuff that they sold. That's how many things there were. 1,000 of them. So of course, as you know, that's going to reduce to, as we already know, $100 times 1 plus. All right, and they were targeting 50,000. All right, so let's just say they achieved their target. Then what that number ends up being is 1/2, right? So how much do firms charge for goods in this macroeconomy? $150. That, I guess it would have been better to express this as 0.5. 0.5, okay? That what they did was, for every dollar's worth of cost, they were aiming to make 50 cents profit, right? And so the total cost of the stuff they sold was $150. The average cost, the average price was $150. The average cost was $100. But given this markup, and the markup is the percentage over cost that they are marking the good or service up in order to generate profits for themselves, all right? So they're marking up the cost by 50%. They're shooting for every dollar's worth of stuff they sell, I'm sorry, I shouldn't put it that way. For every dollar's worth of cost that they have incurred, they're hoping to make 50 cents. So let me go through this again. We've got the total cost of consumption goods sector divided by how much actually was produced. So therefore the average cost was $100. So how much are they going to charge for stuff? What's P sub C going to be? Well, for a start, it's going to be $100, all right? So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to make sure they recover what they paid in order to produce these goods and services. And then they're going to shoot for, and let's just say this is the final output here, they ended up earning $50,000 in profits relative to the $100,000 that it cost them. So there's their total cost, there's their total profit. That ends up being 0.5, right? So it turns out then that if they earned 50 cents on every dollar's worth of cost, then they must have been charging $150. They must have been charging $150 per unit. And that's what the equation is all about. That's in Kaleckians, people that use this stuff will go into various factors that will affect this ratio right here. And you can look at it for international trade issues, that this becomes also a measure of the relative power between labor and firms. If labor can earn more income, then it lowers the overall markup. So that's number, what did I say? 94. Yeah. All right, how long has this video been? Well, 17 minutes, but of course I had to quit because of that silly dog. Let me just show you a couple more things here. We're almost done with this article then. Let me bring back up the study question list here on the computer. There we go. Control Alt Delete. And there's the study questions. All right. So those are the complex mathematical ones. Again, since we are never going to meet again, you'll just be block copying those things rather than having to remember them like other classes have done. Let's see. Okay, yeah, that's clearly legible. All right, good. I think I will zoom in just a bit. And now let me look back at the monitor. It's not too bad. All right. Okay, so we just did, I skipped 92. I told you I wasn't going to tell you about that. You can figure that out yourself. I did 93 and 94, all right? 95 says, write out the price equation and use it to explain why an investment-led expansion is more likely to cause inflation than a consumption-led one, all right? So what Tcherneva is trying to show here is that when we say have a fiscal policy expansion that focuses on, well, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead of the gun, that's where we're going to go to eventually. But that when the economy expands because of investment, a lot more of the money tends to go to profit than it does when the economy expands in the consumption goods sector. And it says there that I'm going to help with it in class, and by golly gosh, I'm going to do that right now. Erase all this and I'll write the answer out. Well, no, I think I'll just show you. Okay, to answer this one, the first thing you got to do is write that equation out again. That one that you just derived in the previous problem, 94, right? So there is the price equation, WC/NC over QC times 1 plus pi C over WC/NC. Now, and I'm going to read this to you and then I'm going to show you the answer. An investment-led expansion, let's do this. Let me write it on the board over here and I can talk about it that way. Oh, wait, I don't have to. Yeah, I do. All right. PC is equal to WC/NC over QC 1 plus pi C WC/NC. Okay, let me direct your attention back to that, and then I'll talk about it. Again, this is all for study question number 95. All right, there's the final equation we derived in the previous question. An investment-led expansion is more likely to be inflationary because it puts upward pressure on the markup, since the numerator is equal to the wage bill in the investment sector. Remember, that's the same thing as total wages in the investment sector. So that an expansion that is led by investment is more likely to be inflationary, is more likely to drive prices up, because it's going to be driving up demand for consumer goods without changing the supply in any direct way. There's going to be an effect on supply, to be sure, but the main effect is going to be on demand. So the markup will get bigger, all right? If it's an investment-led expansion, this number goes up, and therefore this number goes up, all right? Now, to be fair, when this goes up, it's also going to trigger some more production in the consumption goods sector. But again, the idea is that it's more likely to cause inflation if the expansion is investment-led rather than consumption-led. So let's see, where's my red pen? So if this goes up, which is what would go up with an investment-led expansion, that goes up. Now, what about a consumption-led expansion? Let me erase those red arrows. All right. With a consumption-led expansion, it may be inflationary depending on the relative movements of these. A consumption-led expansion is going to raise the quantity that they produce, and it's going to raise the number of people they employ and perhaps their wages. Depends on the ratio, right? If this goes up more than this, inflationary. If this goes up more than this, not inflationary. So that part is kind of wishy-washy over here, but for sure, if this goes up, it lowers the markup. So it is less likely to be inflationary, and I'll show you why she's concerned about that here in just a moment. But here's the answer. Let's see, where are you? Right there. I'm going to try to hold this very steady so that you can pause the screen and write all that out. I will read it to you here. Have to have the equation. Then an investment-led expansion is more likely to be inflationary because it puts more upward pressure on the markup, since the numerator is equal to the wage bill in the investment sector. Consumption-led expansion, on the other hand, may be inflationary, depending on the relative movements of WC and QC, but tends to dampen the markup since its wage bill is in the denominator. So again, pause that and write that down. That's your answer to 95. Interesting. Now, she then comments, I'm going to get to why she thinks that's so important here in just a minute and how it ends up affecting the fiscal stimulus after the financial crisis. But then in the next study question, here, let's just go back over here and I'll show you the study questions again. Okay, in the next study question, it says 96. The basic two-sector model, and I'm sorry, I'm making sure that it's still clear. Ooh, you can only barely see 96. All right, sorry, let me move this a little bit. That's right, I zoomed in some, didn't I? There we go. Okay. The basic two-sector model describes earlier market economies where governments and trade contributed little to output, and in which what is the normal condition and prone to what forces. All right, this is what she's trying to say. She's trying to say that if this were really true about prices here, then wouldn't we see prices moving a lot all the time? Wouldn't we see them going up and down? When in fact we tend to mostly see them only go up over the last decade or so, not up by much, but up. And she said, well, that's right. That pre-World War I, actually, there were extensive periods of deflation. That actually we did see increases and decreases in this number right here regularly. All right, both directions. So she's saying, look, we often were at less than full employment, and we were prone to sizable inflationary and deflationary forces. That when there was an expansion or recession, it put a lot of pressure on this in both directions. We don't see the big pressure down. We did right after the financial crisis because of the economy being in some bad shape. We're likely to see some downward pressure on the prices right now just because of oil, but honestly, a lot of other stuff may end up going in the other direction. Who is this? It's my wife. Hello, Melanie. Did you want to be on TV? I think that was a no. So, anyway, she wants me to hurry up because the dog is driving her insane. All right, I can do that because we're almost to the end of this. let's see, relatively large share of government. Oh, yeah. So the relatively large share of government in GDP after World War II has been a cause of employment being at higher levels. The average length of an expansion is twice as long since World War II relative to before World War I. I'm going to kind of skip the period in between. And the relative period of recession is about half as long. But also, all this government spending has imparted an inflationary bias, all right? So prices tend to go up. 98, I want you to figure it out on your own. And 99 as well. And 100 and 101. You can do all those. Here's what, and I don't end up focusing on it in too much detail until later on some other study questions, but here's what she's going to end up arguing. That the way we actually tend to do, let's see, let me show you these other questions. The way we actually tend to do deficit spending in our economy, it ends up being very similar to increasing investment spending. And notice here, oh, I'm terribly sorry, wrong, I meant to do the previous study question. Here it is, 93. What she's getting at is, and we're going to talk about this more later, but not yet, what she's getting at is in the paper, which I don't make you read this part because it gets kind of complicated, but is the idea that the way we tend to stimulate the economy right now is a lot like investment spending. Now, what does investment spending do? Look at that last equation. It just raises profits. Now, if after the financial crisis, if our goal was to raise people's profits, well then yeah, we should do deficit spending the way we do it. But actually our goal was to help the out-of-work workers. And so she said that a lot of the money didn't go to the people who truly needed it. It went to investment sector workers, because if you raise investment once more, where are we here? The third equation, if you raise investment, you're raising WINI and PI. So you're raising the wages and employment in the investment goods sector. Well, these are generally higher paid workers. And, you know, hey, if we need to do investment, if we need to do infrastructure, we should do it. But we shouldn't think to ourselves, oh, this is going to really help with the unemployment, because it helps. The distributional effect is not what we would hope for in a situation like after the financial crisis. That the way we actually do deficit spending tends to put the money into profits and the wages of higher income workers. And what's going to be argued instead after all this, and in subsequent videos, is that we should instead be having a jobs program which puts money directly in the hands of those who most need it. And that's it. May the force be with you.